for today's new skill Saturday, I'm going to show you how to decorate items using the Makery's brand new Sublimation Printer. The Sublimation Printer is basically just an inkjet printer, but the magic is in the ink cartridges. The ink cartridges are filled with sublimation inks, also referred to as sublimation dyes. And so the way the Sublimation Printer works is you print your photograph or design using our printer, and after it's printed on paper, you would heat it in one of our heat presses. And when the print is heated, the inks will evaporate into a steam, and that steam absorbs into poly-coated and polyester materials. So for example, everything behind me on the shelf was decorated using sublimation prints. The trick is that the items have to have that special coating or special material. The Makery doesn't sell these items. You would buy them ahead of time for your visit. So for an example, I have a decorated hat, and the Rebels logo here was decorated using a sublimation print. And so after printing the design, we heated it in the hat press right behind me. And when it was heated, those inks evaporated into a steam. And the reason they absorbed into this fabric material is because it is made of 100% white polyester. So this was just a hat we purchased on Amazon, and it has to be polyester at least 75% and preferably white in order to absorb those inks. Some other items that we decorated with the Sublimation Printer include this mug and this photo panel. Now the mug and the photo panel both have a polycoat surface on them, and it's that polycoat that absorbs the inks. These are referred to as sublimation blanks. So this is a sublimation mug, and this is a sublimation photo panel. We purchased this from a local craft store. You can get sublimation mugs from stores like Joann's and Michael's. The sublimation photo panel is a little bit harder to find, and we purchased this from Johnson Plastics Plus. Again, you need to have an item that has that polycoat surface, and you need to purchase these ahead of time before your Makery visit because we don't sell the blank materials. So for today's skill, I'm going to show you how to decorate a black cotton t-shirt. And the reason I chose a black cotton t-shirt is because the inks don't absorb directly into this material. And because it's black and really dark, you wouldn't see the inks anyway. So what we are going to do today is use a material called Siser EasySubli heat transfer vinyl. And it's a type of white material that's going to heat onto the shirt. And we're going to use this to absorb the inks from the sublimation print. So we don't supply the item you're decorating. We don't have them to purchase. So in all of these projects, you would buy your own t-shirt or your own mug. But we do have the printer, and the cost can range for mugs. The mug sheets are 25 cents a sheet. And then the t-shirts with the Siser EasySubli are $3 for a letter size. So the price ranges from 25 cents to $3. So we are going to get started. The first step is to have an image to print onto paper using the Sublimation Printer. The first step to using the Sublimation Printer is to prepare your design or image to print. Since it's basically just a printer, we can use a program like Microsoft Word to size photographs to send to the printer. So I have Microsoft Word open. I'm going to choose a blank document. And the sheet of paper we are printing to is letter size 8.5 by 11. So I don't need to change anything in regards to the size of the paper. But in order to make my image as large as possible, I do want to shrink up my margins. So I'm going to go to page layout, and there's an option for margins. And I'm going to choose the narrow from the list. You also have the option to do custom margins. But you do want to leave a little bit of space because the printer cannot print all the way to the edge of the paper. So I'm going to choose narrow. And that's going to adjust my margins so they're 1/2 inch all around. And now I'm going to go to Insert, Pictures. And so I have a family photo saved to the desktop. So I'm going to go to Desktop and choose Family Photo and select Insert. And one thing you'll see here is that the family photo is more of a landscape, and my sheet of paper is more like a portrait orientation. So what I'm going to do is go to Page Layout, choose Orientation, and switch to Landscape. And now I have all this extra room to make my picture bigger. So to do that, I'm going to grab one of the corners, and you want to make sure you grab a corner because it will keep the image proportionate. And you're going to click and drag until you get to about that 1/2 inch margin on that other side. And I'm going to zoom out here so you can see. So here we have our letter size sheet of paper, and our photograph covers most of it. So now that we have the image sized to fit the majority of this paper, all you need to do next is save your Word document onto a USB drive. So you would go to File, Save, and choose Browse, and give your file name, and save it to a USB drive, set up a reservation to come to the Makery, and have the staff print your design for you using the Sublimation Printer. So once you've prepared your image and you sized it for the sheet of paper, you would bring it into the Makery on a USB flash drive, and staff will pull it up on one of our computers, and we will mirror it and send it to the printer to print. At that time, you would collect the payment for the print. So for this project, for the t-shirts, it's $3 in total. And you can see it's starting to print right behind me. So we're just going to wait a couple seconds for the image to print completely from the printer. All right, so the print finished. It only takes about 30 seconds for the print to come out. And so this is what it looks like coming out of the printer. So again, the design needs to be mirrored, and that's something we can help you with when you come to use the printer. And we cannot print all the way to the edge. If you print all the way to the edge, you risk getting the inks on the rollers of the printer, which is bad for the next print. And you'll notice that the colors here look a little faded. That's on purpose. That's how they always come out. When we heat it and the inks evaporate into the steam, it's going to activate the pigments of the colors. So we'll have an item that looks very vibrant at the end. I also want to point out that this is just regular paper. So right now we haven't printed on anything special. This is letter size paper. And what we're going to do next is trim it. And also trim our Siser EasySubli HTV so the sizes match so we can heat them together. So that's what we're going to do next. So our next step is to trim both our print and the Siser EasySubli. The purpose for trimming is because we are going to take this item and we're going to place it face down on this surface, and we're going to heat it so the inks transfer in. And so what we want to do is make sure that the Siser EasySubli is the exact same size as our picture. So we want to get rid of these margins that we have. So we have this nice cutter. It's a rotary cutter that slides up and down on this rail. So what we're going to do is take our print. We're going to slide it under the guard. We're going to make sure it's parallel here with this piece. And we're going to slide the blade across. And we're going to do that for the other sides. And so now we've gotten rid of all those white margins. So now what we want to do is make sure our Siser EasySubli heat transfer vinyl matches in size. So we're actually going to heat this face down. So what I'm going to do is put this face down, and I'm going to use my pencil to mark where the edges are, and that's where I'm going to make my cuts. So I marked with pencil right here and right there. And we can set this aside, and then we can take our Siser EasySubli, line up where that pencil mark is, and trim off that extra material we won't need. I'm going to do that for my other side. And so now, hopefully, when I line them up, they should be roughly the same size. All right, so now that we have trimmed our print down to size and the Siser EasySubli to match, it's time to heat these onto our t-shirt. So I have the heat press on, and it is heating up. This is our clamshell t-shirt press, and this is what you would use to heat up any item you have that is flat. I have it heating up to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We have this handy dandy heat guide chart that you can use. And it has most projects that you could do down here in the Makery with their recommended temperatures and times for heating. I am going to emphasize that these are recommendations. Sometimes there are some trial and error involved in the heating process, so you always want to have extras with you in case there is an issue. But these are good starting points to start with. So right now we're just waiting on the t-shirt press to heat up. What I can do while I'm waiting is press this one time to get all of the wrinkles and moisture out. So I have my t-shirt laid down, and I have the collar at the top. And I do want to point out that this surface up here, this top piece, is the actual hot plate. So that is heating up to 375 degrees. You never want to touch that with your bare hands. What I'm also going to do is grab our lint roller. And we have this available in the Makery for you to use. And I'm just going to lint roll to get some fuzzies off. And then we always want to put on top of our material a Teflon sheet. The Teflon sheet is reusable and is heat resistant. And the purpose of the Teflon sheet is so your item doesn't melt to the heat press, and that other material that might have heated onto the heat press don't melt into your item. So it protects both the heat press and your t-shirt. And we're just going to lay this on top. Make sure everything's flat, and we're going to take the handle and press it down. And we don't need to lock it, but I'm going to lock it just to show. So when you press down, it locks into place, and that's absolutely necessary when you heat your design on. And for this, we're just getting the wrinkles out, so we only need to do it for about 10 seconds. And to unlock the heat press, you're going to take a hot pad, because again, this is very hot. You're going to push down with your non-dominant hand and push up with your dominant hand. And that will unlock the heat press. And again, this is just to get the wrinkles and the moisture out. It's almost at 375, so what I'm going to do now is line up my Siser EasySubli. So one thing I'm going to do is grab our new t-shirt guides. We have different guides for the size of the shirt you're doing. So this is the guide for adult shirts. This is where the collar rests. So I'm going to line this up with my collar. And this will allow me to see where the center of my shirt is, so I can make sure my item is as centered as possible. So far, we've been talking about the Siser EasySubli heat transfer vinyl, but there's also a material called the Siser EasySubli mask. So the heat transfer vinyl is the item that absorbs the inks, and there's two sides to this. One of them is a shiny side. That shiny material is just a protective layer, and it's not heat resistant, so it does not go in the heat press. The other side that is not shiny is the front of your material. It's the side that's going to absorb the inks. In our case, we have a rectangle, so if we really wanted to, we can peel this manually as long as we don't rip it. But if you had something that was more of a unique shape, like a star for instance, or if you didn't want to risk tearing it, that's when the Siser EasySubli comes into place. This is a heat-resistant transfer tape, so this material can go into the heat press. And the way that it works is you peel. There are two layers to this material. And when you peel it, there's a clear sticky tape, and then this white material. This white material is only meant to protect the sticky side. So this is garbage. We can toss this white material away. And this sticky transfer tape we can stick onto our Siser EasySubli. So I have the Siser EasySubli stuck to this transfer tape. And the purpose of that is so I can peel the protective layer that is not heat resistant off of the Siser EasySubli. So the Siser EasySubli has this very cloudy looking plastic. This is the protective layer that can't go in the heat press. So we have to peel this off. And so this goes in the garbage. So we should have our Siser EasySubli heat transfer vinyl stuck to our Siser EasySubli mask. And I noticed that there's a couple wrinkles on mine, so I'm just going to smooth those wrinkles out. And my heat press has finally heated up to 375. So what I'm going to do is take my Siser EasySubli, and with this shiny side up, I'm going to line it up on my t-shirt. So I have it lined up on my t-shirt, and I have removed my ruler guide. You won't want to press this, so this you take out. And again, I'm going to cover with my Teflon sheet, and we're going to press for 10 seconds. After pressing for 10 seconds, we remove the Teflon sheet. And now that white EasySubli should be adhered and stuck to your t-shirt. So now we're going to remove the heat resistant tape. And we're going to heat the t-shirt for the final time with our sublimation print on top. So this is going to go face down, so that the print is directly touching the Siser EasySubli. And we have special heat resistant tape that we can use to line this up and tape it in place. The purpose of that tape is to prevent the sheet from shifting when you are putting it in the heat press and closing it and moving it around. Now, because we are finally getting to the step where we're actually heating the inks, we want to cover the material with butcher paper. The reason for this is that those inks are going to evaporate into a steam, and we want to contain the steam as much as possible. So we want to make sure that that steam only goes into the Siser EasySubli or into the butcher paper. We want to make sure that steam never makes it into the hot plate or the silicone pad underneath. If those materials absorb any of the inks, it can ruin the next project that we try to decorate. So we have butcher paper and we have that heat resistant tape. We only ask that you supply it yourself if you're doing a large quantity of items. And we're going to lay this on top. And just as an extra measure, we're also going to lay the Teflon on top. And we're going to close the t-shirt press and we're going to heat it for 45 seconds this time. So that means my 45-second timer finished. You will notice a little bit of steam. Again, that's the inks evaporating. We're going to set our Teflon sheet aside. As long as none of the inks evaporated into the sheet, we can reuse it for future projects. The butcher paper you can only reuse if there's no inks evaporated into it. And now for the moment of truth, we can scoot our t-shirt out a little bit and we can remove that print. Now again, we're heating this at 375 degrees, so sometimes your materials are very hot when they come out of the heat press. You can let it cool off until it's cool enough for you to touch. And so here is our photo transfer onto a black cotton t-shirt. You can really see how the colors are super vibrant in comparison to the original printout we had. And so this material, the purpose of sublimation, one of the benefits, is this material and these inks will last a very, very long time. So you can put this in the wash and you shouldn't really notice any fading or cracking. It should last a very long time in comparison to other types of photo transfers. And so that's how you use the Sublimation Printer and the heat press to make a custom black cotton t-shirt. You can use a similar process to decorate mugs, hats, photo panels, and more. And again, we have a 15-inch by 15-inch heat press, a mug press, and a hat press. So we look forward to your next visit using our Sublimation Printer and decorating your own custom items. If you have any questions about the project or want suggestions on where to buy sublimation blanks, you can email us at makery@elmlib.org or give us a call at 630-279-8696. I hope you enjoyed today's New Skill Saturday. Have a nice day.